A state working group is today examining emergency insurance options for 40,000 Irish homeowners locked out of the market entirely because they live in high-risk flood zones. Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Brief. Today is Tuesday, 11th August, 2026. I'm Neil, and in the next few minutes, I'll take you through the news that matters at home in Ireland, then across to Britain, and out into the wider world. Everything you need to know before the day begins. Ireland. Let's begin here at home, in Ireland. A state working group has been convened to tackle a housing crisis that's quietly deepening across the country. Around 40,000 homeowners in high-risk flood zones are being refused insurance cover altogether, a situation that leaves them unable to borrow money, unable to sell their homes, and essentially trapped. The government is now exploring what options might exist to fill that gap, but the reality is stark. For families in these areas, home ownership has become a precarious thing. For anyone in Dublin, Cork, or Galway, the practical impact is straightforward. If you're in a flood risk zone and your insurer walks away, you cannot sell, you cannot refinance, and you're bearing the full cost of any damage yourself. Also this morning, the Taoiseach is pushing hard in EU budget negotiations to secure what he's calling adequate funding for the Common Agricultural Policy beyond 2027. These talks are intensifying across Brussels, and Ireland is making the case that our farmers, who depend heavily on CAP support, cannot afford a reduction in that money. It's a crucial moment for rural communities and for the shape of Irish agriculture in the coming years. Here at home, that means the livelihoods of thousands of farming families across the country are directly tied to how these negotiations land in the coming months. And turning to sport, Cork's All-Ireland Senior Camogie champions have been welcomed home with celebrations across the city this morning, carrying the O'Duffy Cup. The team made the traditional journey to Temple Street Children's Hospital as part of the homecoming. It's a moment of real national pride, a significant sporting achievement, and a reminder of Camogie's place at the heart of Irish GAA life and community identity. A significant achievement and a celebration of one of Ireland's most cherished sporting traditions. Meanwhile, at Auberstown Children Detention Campus, staff, represented by Forsa Union, are proceeding with industrial action after dispute resolution talks have broken down. The union is citing serious concerns over resourcing and safe staffing levels at the facility. The Department of Children has responded by saying these work stoppages don't align with agreed dispute resolution processes. It's a tense situation in a service responsible for some of the state's most vulnerable young people, and it raises urgent questions about whether the resources are there to do the job safely. UK. Now, across the Irish Sea to the UK. England is facing unprecedented drought pressure this summer. More than 2/3 of the country is now in official drought status, with the East Midlands, Lincolnshire, Northamptonshire, Kent, East Sussex, and the Solent region all moving into that category. Water restrictions are tightening, and if the dry spell continues, they could intensify significantly, putting pressure on farming and household supply alike. For anyone in Dublin, Cork, or Galway watching the UK weather, it's worth noting extreme weather events affecting England can ripple across the Irish Sea through shared power grids, agricultural trade, and the sheer scale of climate pressure on both islands. And that heat isn't stopping at the Irish Sea. Amber heat health alerts are now in place across almost all of England until Friday evening, with temperatures expected to climb to 36 degrees Celsius or higher. This is the second major heat wave of the English summer, and it's arriving on top of the drought. The combination is putting real strain on energy, agriculture, and health services. The pressure on UK infrastructure during heat extremes can affect cross-border electricity flows and shared climate resilience planning that both countries depend on. The UK government has announced new planning powers for councils in England and Wales, and similar measures in Scotland, to block the opening of vape and betting shops. Prime Minister Andy Burnham framed this as a move to revitalise town centres that have declined over decades, with high streets increasingly dominated by these outlets rather than traditional retail. It's a direct intervention in the planning system with an eye toward community character. The move reflects broader concerns about high street decline affecting towns and cities across Britain. The Royal Navy is investigating after a Chinese-made component was discovered in its new sea drones. A component that was sending communications to a Chinese IP address. The Ministry of Defence says no data breach has been confirmed so far, but the discovery has prompted an immediate security review. It's a reminder of the complexity of global supply chains, even in sensitive defence equipment. The incident underscores the security challenges facing modern defence procurement across NATO and allied nations. World. And finally, out into the wider world. Diageo, the world's largest spirits company and a major employer based here in Dublin, is facing a significant setback in one of its most important growth markets. India's authorities have seized thousands of bottles of Diageo whiskey and vodka as part of a food safety enforcement operation. The action could have real implications for the company's revenue and its supply chain in the Indian market, where Diageo has substantial operations and export volumes. For Ireland, this matters because Diageo's Dublin headquarters and its Irish operations could feel the impact of lost revenue and disrupted supply chains in one of the company's key growth regions. Oil prices are holding steady near one-week highs this morning, as hopes for a US-Iran peace deal have dimmed. Diplomatic prospects that might have eased global crude supplies are fading, and geopolitical tensions continue to support prices at elevated levels. It's a reminder that energy markets remain sensitive to international relations. Here at home, that means rising oil prices will continue to push up fuel and heating costs for Irish households and businesses, adding to inflation pressures and making exports less competitive on global markets. Ukraine and Moldova are exploring a new route to keep grain exports flowing despite ongoing conflict. They are considering rail transport through Moldova to replace shipping routes that have been disrupted. Ukraine is one of the world's largest grain suppliers, and maintaining that flow is critical for global food security. The knock-on effect for Irish households? Stable grain supplies help stabilise food prices here at home. And for Irish agriculture, reliable global grain markets support the broader health of the sector. And there's more positive news on the shipping front. Major carriers Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd are resuming more sailings through the Suez Canal, indicating that security risks in that critical waterway have reduced. This is good news for global trade flows, as it means lower shipping costs and faster delivery times for goods moving between Asia and Europe. Why does this matter on this side of the Irish Sea? Because lower shipping costs mean Irish imports from Asia arrive faster and cheaper, benefiting consumers and businesses across the economy, while also making Irish exports more competitive on distant markets. A lot moving this morning. Tensions abroad on energy and supply chains, a state working group at home tackling insurance and flood risk, and farmers waiting to hear how EU budget talks will shape their future. And that's the morning grief for today. Whatever the day brings, take it steady. I'm Neil. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Until then, look after yourself.